Yeah, I suppose when you live in Crossmaglen, you don't know any different. Looking back, it's extremely what you went through. You simply can't believe it. I remember, when I get asked this question, I went to university in Coleraine, and I remember sitting in a bar with students in the first year, and the lights went out in the bar. And when the electricity was cut or the lights went out, I jumped off the bar stool and put my hands over my head and covered it because that was a signal for a bomb hitting. Because anytime growing up across Midland, before a mortar would hit, you would get 30 seconds of the lights cut. The electricity went out, you knew to get cover. And everybody in the bar laughed. And that's when the dawning was that the realization that this didn't happen everywhere else. Some people ask me what was it like growing up. You didn't know any different growing up in Cross Midland. You were There were checkpoints, the ring of steel right round the area, every road in and out. You had to go through a checkpoint, say to the British Army where you were going when you were coming back. We were always had army in the gates of our houses interfering with the televisions when the Ireland matches were on. It always seemed to be the radio interference. Playing army, crawling up on the GEA field, trying to get as close to the big watchtower before the lights went on and showing you. Pretty dangerous stuff when you think when you're a child. But and being able to name all the helicopters that were in the air and the names of them and Lynx, Gazelle and whatever. So that was just a normal childhood for us. But it's only when you remove yourself from that that you realise how utterly bizarre the whole thing was. I knew from I started in secondary school that I was gay, but not being able to speak to somebody was quite difficult. And I suppose when you're in a rural community, you feel completely isolated. You're sort of looking at TV and you see, what's going on in London or whatever, and you tell yourself you'll have to leave this place if you ever want to be happy and you want to follow the path that it was laid out for me. Every negative voice I seen made it worse because then you'd hear family members and old family members that sort of grew up with the teachings of the church just agreeing with it. And that would make you shrink more and more into your shell. And I remember when the conversion therapy debate came up recently, I think it was 2 years ago in the Assembly, and it triggered me again because we had the likes of Jim Allister and Jim Wells up giving, shouting about how sinful this is and quoting the Bible. And I went on to social media and I put out a tweet and a Facebook post calling on all those people, young people who are struggling with who they are, that feel like they have a huge mountain to climb, to please do not listen to the negative voices, to listen to the voices of Cara Hunter and Carol Niculan and Andrew Muir and all the parties who are coming up and speaking positive messages. They're the people I want you to lean on what they're saying because the other negative voices just cause increased hurt to you. You'll go inside yourself and you won't express yourself. So trying to drown out those voices. And that's why I think it's really important that you speak up. I was very uncomfortable growing up in my sexuality and who I was. I actually left, went to university. I stayed up there a lot in Coleraine. And then when I finished university, I travelled the world alone. I wanted to sort of find myself. I went to Australia, I went to India, I went to China, I went to New Zealand. I travelled all about, and that was my big awakening. So when I came home, I wanted to speak to people openly about who I was. I'd met my now husband before I went to Australia and kept in touch with him, and then met up when we got back home. And I wanted to be not like the private, keep my whole private life to myself. I wanted to be openly speaking out. And that came with its challenges too, because when we did openly speak out and we were engaged to be married, my family, saying it to my family, and I actually never told anybody that I was gay. I just says, here's me fiance. And they all thought it was one of my friends from football or whatever because we were living in a flat together and the whole lot. Some people knew, some close friends knew, but I actually never took the step to go and tell people because I didn't know how to do it. And again, there's a part of me saying, why should I have to do it? Nobody else has to go and say that they're heterosexual, so I didn't think I should have to do it. My anxiety went through the roof. Now, I didn't realise what was happening, but it was the build up of me bottling the things up, not being able to deal with it, afraid people were talking about me, afraid I was opening the door too much in my personal life, and that I had no control, and people making judgment on me. You're talking about that conversion therapy debate where you had the negative words that were said across that chamber in Stormont, the people who contact me in emails telling me how wrong I am, how I shouldn't be around children and stuff like that. You hear all these arguments. And it had a massive effect to the point that 4 or 5 nights out of the week, out of every 7 nights, I was suffering nocturnal panic attacks. So that's waking in my sleep, heightened anxiety, thinking can't breathe, think I'm going to die. The same thing that's happening all the time, every night. Even though I know when I snap out of it that I'm okay, my body was really suffering. And that went on for months and months and months. And I tried to suppress it. Got to the point actually where I moved to the spare room in the house because my husband was getting up and going to Belfast at 4:30 in the morning. And I was really, he couldn't sleep with it until he asked me to go and get something done about it. See, when somebody's speaking ill of you, your life choices, who you are, your sexuality, doesn't matter if 20 people speak and say positive comments, you hone in on the negative. You hear the negative over and over your head. What if he's right? What if I am speaking too much? What if I'm going too far? And I think as humans, that's only natural that we focus on the negatives. And you go on Twitter, you focus on the negative comments that are upon you. You don't see all the positive stuff. So I wanted people to channel and say, listen to these positive voices. I think it's really, really important for people's mental health. And that's why I think debates like that, people should be respectful in those debates. And sometimes in this place, respect goes out the window. It's getting better. I know that strap line that it does get better. It actually is. I was actually about 18 months ago at the opening of an LGBTQI plus cafe in Silver Ridge, just 4 mile outside Crossmaglen. And it was doing the opening speech at it. It's a social enterprise that works with adults with learning disabilities, but they have a cafe mark, which is Irish for out, and it's a cafe that runs during the weeknight for under 16s and on a Friday night for over 16s. And I thought, when I was in a 42 bus going to Newry to school, to think that in 10 years or 15 years' time, not giving away my age there, but I'd be driving past what would be an LGBTQI plus cafe, I would have said, no, you're away in the head. So they've drawn down funding, hugely successful, doing karaoke nights, doing talks, having Cara Friend in, or sale some of the companies or the big organisations in to talk to LGBTQI plus kids and allies. So we've taken all the football clubs, Crossmaglen Rangers and all that were at the launch night to see how they can support the LGBT people right across rural areas. But it's visibility. Outside, concrete places where people can go, it's visibility in this area. And I suppose me taking over, first of all, speaking up as a public rep, but then becoming the chairperson and the first openly gay chairperson of this council. I think each step sort of helps to show people you can do what you want to do, serve your community, and be who you are. You don't have to choose either or. And I think that's a dilemma that sort of hit me when I first became a councillor. January 2016, I became a councillor, and I never spoke about my personal life to anybody. And I swore I wouldn't speak about my personal life in the council capacity until the Newry Pride event that year in 2016, and I get a phone call asking, because I was a gay councillor, would I speak at an equality event in the Canal Court. So I said, right, I'll go and speak at it. Didn't know what I was going to say. I was just going to speak openly, speak about my personal experience. And I went into the room, and it was me and Lyra McKee. So me and her were the only two people on the panel. And I turned to Lyra and I says, I am bloody nervous. I don't know what to say to and she says, just speak about your own personal experiences. We all just want to hear your personal experience. You don't have to know every answer to every question across the LGBTQI plus spectrum, because I knew next to nothing about trans rights or whatever. And I says, well, what are you doing? And she says, I'm going to speak about equality, LGBT equality, from the eyes of the church. I was bloody hell, good luck to you doing that. So it sort of calmed me down, and even listening to her, I thought she was fantastic and a big loss to society. She was brilliant at captivating a crowd and getting a message across. And that was the first time I openly spoke. And from that, I realised the amount of people that it had helped. So when you're talking about the effect in rural communities, I had family members, mums and dads, contacting me, reaching out to me, saying, thanks very much for speaking up, because we put it out online. And asking me questions, and then I could use the organisations that I was working with through the Rainbow community to try and point them in the right direction, whether it was trans healthcare, which is a nightmare in the north here, or just being a listening ear for people. And I realised that it was bloody important to speak up. And then I walked in my first Pride Parade, and I thought that was huge because I didn't enjoy Pride Parades when I was growing up. I've been in Belfast and I've seen it, and I was going, that's not for me. But walking in it, I seen from the perspective of the parade, looking to the both pavements, and I seen young grandchildren, as young as 5, 6, waving flags with their grandparents, 80, 90 years of age, waving, and it was just a family atmosphere, and it was a celebration. And I thought, this is what visibility is all about. If we're going to actually change things and have a positive reflection on the LGBTQI plus community, we're going to have to be visible. So it's incumbent on me to speak up and use my public platform to walk in these parades, to speak at these events, to use the council chamber or the radio or the television to talk about my personal experiences.